Someone is testing you right now. Maybe it's subtle, a cutting remark wrapped in a smile. Maybe it's loud, a person who seems to exist solely to make you feel small. Either way, you feel it. That low, uncomfortable pull in your chest. The urge to defend yourself, to explain, to fire back, and finally make them understand. But here's what nobody tells you. The moment you react, that's the moment they win. Toxic people don't need to be smarter than you, stronger than you, or even right. They just need you to lose your composure. That's the whole game. Your reaction is the prize. Your frustration is the fuel. And every time you take the bait, you hand over a piece of your dignity without realizing it. Stoicism saw this clearly 2,000 years ago. Not as a theory, as a practice, a daily, deliberate discipline of choosing who you are, regardless of how others behave. The Stoics understood something modern psychology is only now catching up to. Self-respect is not something you receive. It's something you build, quietly, consistently, in how you respond to the world. This video is about that building. Not how to fight back, not how to win arguments, how to become someone toxic behavior simply cannot touch. That journey starts now. Let's be honest about what this actually feels like. You know the person. Maybe you work with them, maybe you share a home with them, maybe they raised you. Whatever the relationship, the pattern is the same. You leave every interaction feeling hollowed out, tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, second-guessing things you were certain about before the conversation started. That's not accidental. Toxic behavior operates on a simple, almost mechanical principle. Find the gap between who someone wants to be and who they're afraid they are, then pry it open. Criticism isn't random, it's targeted. The belittling comment about your career choice lands harder than a generic insult because it hits something real, a doubt you already carry. The dismissal of your feelings doesn't sting because you're weak. It stings because somewhere, quietly, you were hoping to be heard. This is the terrain you're navigating. And the worst part? Nobody prepares you for it. You grow up learning that respect is earned through achievement, through likability, through being agreeable enough that no one has a reason to dislike you. So when someone disrespects you anyway, for no logical reason, or worse, because you are doing well, you don't know what to do with it. You try harder, explain more, shrink a little, adjust. And the adjustment never works, because the problem was never you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations something that reads almost like a quiet warning. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't writing for philosophers in lecture halls. He was writing for himself, an emperor surrounded by political rivals, flatterers, critics, and people who wanted things from him constantly. He understood that the external world, including difficult people, would never stop being difficult. The only variable he could truly control was himself. That's the shift this video is asking you to make. Not a passive shift, not just ignore them or be the bigger person in that hollow advice column way. A real shift, one that requires you to look clearly at what's happening, understand why toxic behavior affects you the way it does, and then begin the slow, deliberate work of building something inside yourself that external behavior cannot dismantle. Here's something worth sitting with. The reason toxic people affect you isn't weakness. It's because you're human, and humans are wired for connection. When someone you interact with regularly treats you with contempt, your nervous system registers it as a threat. Not just emotionally, but physiologically. Your cortisol rises, your thinking narrows, You enter a defensive state that makes clear-headedness almost impossible. Toxic people, consciously or not, understand this. They repeat the behavior because it works, not in any meaningful sense, but in the sense that it keeps you off balance. And an off-balance person is an easier person to control, dismiss, or diminish. This is why your reaction is so valuable to them. It confirms their power. It tells them the lever works. And this is precisely why Stoicism begins not with tactics, but with understanding. Before you can change how you respond to toxic people, you need to see the dynamic clearly, without rage, without victimhood, without the foggy lens of hurt feelings. You need to understand what's actually happening, who actually holds the power, and what it would mean to reclaim it. Because you can, not through confrontation, not through silence that slowly kills you, but through something far more durable, a practiced, grounded, unshakable sense of who you are. That's what the Stoics called self-mastery. And it begins with a single, uncomfortable realization. The realization isn't comfortable, but nothing that actually changes you ever is. Here it is. You have been seeking respect in the wrong place. Not from a lack of effort, not from weakness. You've been looking outward, waiting for the toxic person to finally see your worth, to acknowledge the line they keep crossing, to have the moment of clarity where they treat you the way you deserve to be treated. And that waiting, that quiet, exhausting hope, is costing you more than any insult ever could. Epictetus, who was born a slave and spent his early life with no freedom whatsoever, built one of the most powerful philosophical frameworks ever conceived. And the foundation of everything he taught was devastatingly simple. Some things are within your control, and some things are not. What others think, say, and do, not yours. Your judgments, your values, your responses, entirely yours. That's the whole line. Everything else is commentary. When you grasp this, truly grasp it, not as an intellectual idea but as a felt truth, it doesn't feel like surrender, it feels like release. Think about the last time you tried to explain yourself to someone who had already decided what to think about you. You laid out your reasoning carefully. You were articulate, even patient, and they dismissed it, or twisted it, or used it against you. You walked away feeling worse than before you spoke, not because you failed to explain well enough, because explaining was never going to work. The conversation wasn't about truth, it was about control, and you played by rules that were never designed for you to win. The Stoics would have recognized this immediately. Cato the Younger, one of history's most striking examples of lived Stoicism, operated this way constantly. In the Roman Senate, surrounded by men who mocked his plain dress, his refusal to take bribes, his stubborn insistence on principle, Cato simply didn't negotiate with their contempt. He didn't perform dignity, he embodied it. There's a story, possibly apocryphal but philosophically perfect, that when Julius Caesar's allies insulted him openly in the Senate, Cato stood and delivered his argument as if the insult had never occurred. Not stiffly, not through clenched teeth, with complete equanimity. The insult simply had no surface to stick to. That's not suppression, that's not avoidance. That is a man who knows exactly who he is. And this is the seed the Stoics plant in you. Your identity is not negotiable. It is not something that gets redefined by how someone else speaks to you, treats you, or perceives you. When you internalize this, when you stop outsourcing your self-concept to the opinion of someone who doesn't respect you, something remarkable happens. The toxic behavior doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip. because it no longer has anything real to grab onto. Seneca captured this with a line that deserves to be read slowly. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. The suffering isn't only in what the toxic person does, it's in what their behavior means to you, the story you build around it, the proof you think it offers that you're not enough, not worthy, not seen. That story is where the real damage lives, and that story is yours to rewrite. This is the moment in the journey where most people get stuck. They understand the philosophy, but don't know how to live it. They can nod along to Epictetus, but still feel their pulse rise the moment that person walks into the room. Understanding and embodying are two different things, and the gap between them is closed only through practice. In the segments ahead, you're going to work through that practice directly. Real scenarios, real toxic behaviors, and the precise Stoic responses that don't just neutralize the moment, they reinforce your character every single time you use them. This is where theory becomes armor. Let's stop being abstract and get into the room with you. Because the philosophy is essential, but philosophy without application is just comfort food for the mind. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations as a book to be published. He wrote them as daily preparation, reminders he gave himself before walking into a world full of difficult people and impossible demands. Stoicism was always meant to be used. So let's use it. Scenario 1. The public humiliation. You're in a group setting, work meeting, family dinner, social gathering, and someone makes a comment at your expense. It might be framed as a joke. It might be delivered as a casual observation, but it lands the way it was intended to land, as a diminishment. Everyone hears it. Some people laugh. You feel your face go hot. This is the most dangerous moment, not because the comment was devastating, but because your instinct is to respond immediately, to defend yourself, match their energy, or laugh it off in a way that quietly eats you alive. All three responses serve the toxic person's goal. They've pulled you onto their stage. The Stoic response is not silence out of fear. It's composure as a choice. There's a technique worth naming here, sometimes called the pause and redirect. You let the comment land. You don't rush to fill the silence. You make eye contact, calm, unhurried, and either say nothing or respond with something quiet and direct that addresses the substance, not the sting. Something like, "That's an interesting perspective," delivered without sarcasm, without strain. Then you move on. You don't circle back. You don't need to win the moment publicly because you've already won the moment privately. What this communicates, not just to the room, but to yourself, is that their words don't get to define the temperature of your inner world. That composure is its own reply, and people notice. More importantly, you notice. Scenario 2. The constant critic. This person has an opinion about everything you do, and it's rarely positive. Your choices, your appearance, your work, your relationships. They dress it up as concern sometimes. Other times they don't bother. The effect is the same, a slow erosion of confidence. You start second-guessing decisions before you make them. You begin to narrate your life through their critical voice before they even open their mouth. This is one of toxic behavior's most effective long games, colonizing your internal monologue. Epictetus addressed this directly when he wrote about the difference between what is ours and what is not. Your internal narrative, the way you speak to yourself, the standards you hold yourself to, that is yours. No one else is entitled to author it. But when you keep the critic close, keep engaging with their criticism, keep hoping this time will be different, you are handing them the pen. The Stoic practice here is to stop explaining yourself to people who have demonstrated they're not listening in good faith. Not defensively, not coldly, simply as a decision. You begin to answer their criticism with acknowledgement rather than justification. I hear that you see it that way. Full stop. No elaboration. No defense. You don't owe anyone a debate about your choices. And every time you resist the urge to justify yourself to someone who won't value the explanation, you reclaim a little more of your own authority. Scenario 3. The emotional provocateur. This person knows exactly which buttons to push, and they push them deliberately. They bring up the thing you're insecure about. They revisit old wounds. They frame conversations in ways designed to destabilize you, then stand back and watch you scramble. Sometimes they escalate. Sometimes they gaslight. Sometimes they simply wear you down over time until you're exhausted enough to say something you'll regret. And then they use that against you too. This is provocation as a strategy. And Seneca's counsel on anger is the most useful tool you have here. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Not suppression. Delay. There is a profound difference. Suppressing anger means swallowing it, which only pressurizes it. Delay means inserting a gap, a conscious pause between the provocation and your response. In that gap lives your freedom. In that gap, you get to choose who you are. The practical application is almost uncomfortably simple. Slow your breathing, buy yourself 3 seconds, and ask internally, does responding serve me here? Frequently the answer is no. Frequently the most powerful thing you can do is say very little or nothing. Maintain your physical composure, relaxed posture, steady eye contact, unhurried movement, and let the provocation dissolve without a host. An emotional reaction is oxygen to fire. Remove the oxygen and the fire dies. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The toxic person standing in your way isn't an obstacle to your growth. They are, in a very real sense, the instrument of it. Every time you exercise restraint in front of a provocateur, you are strengthening the exact muscle that self-respect is built on. Scenario 4. The boundary tester. Some toxic people don't do dramatic things. They do incremental things. Small violations of your stated or implied limits. Arriving late repeatedly, dismissing things you've asked for, making you feel like your needs are excessive or unreasonable. They test the edges of what you'll accept, and when you accept it, the edge moves. Over time, you realize you're living somewhere you never agreed to live. Boundary setting in Stoic terms isn't about issuing ultimatums or preparing for confrontation. It's about knowing your values so clearly that the boundary becomes obvious to you first. When you are rooted in what you actually stand for, communicating limits becomes less about the other person and more about self-declaration. You're not setting a boundary to change them. You have no control over whether they respect it. You're setting it because it defines who you are. The Stoic move is to state it calmly, once, and then act consistently, regardless of their response. If the boundary isn't respected, the action you take, distancing, ending the conversation, removing access, isn't punishment. It's the natural consequence of your values carried out without drama. That's not cold. That's clarity. Here's the part of the journey most people never reach, because it requires something harder than handling toxic behavior. It requires looking at what that behavior shows you about yourself. Not in the way a toxic person wants you to look at yourself, not with shame or self-blame, but with the honest, curious eye of someone who actually wants to grow. Because toxic people, as exhausting and damaging as they can be, are extraordinary mirrors. Every place they get to you, every time a comment lands, a dismissal stings, a boundary gets crossed and you say nothing, is a precise map of where your self-respect still needs work. Not because they're right about you, but because their power over you reveals where you still depend on external approval to feel secure. Think about this carefully. If your self-concept were truly stable, if you knew who you were with the kind of certainty that Cato the Younger carried through the Senate, no comment would land the way toxic comments land. Not because you'd be numb, but because a person who is rooted doesn't blow over in the wind. They feel the wind, they register it fully, and then they remain standing. The places where you blow over, those are the places to look. Marcus Aurelius spent enormous time in his meditations examining his own reactions, not to shame himself, but to understand them. When he felt irritation, he didn't perform patience. He asked why the irritation was there, what assumption was underneath it, what need was being threatened. He used his emotional responses as diagnostic tools rather than things to hide or indulge. You can do the same. The next time a toxic person gets under your skin, rather than immediately focusing on their behavior, get curious about your own. What exactly stung? Was it the comment about your work? And if so, is there a part of you that already doubts yourself there? Was it the dismissal? And does that dismissal echo something you heard growing up, something that told you your feelings were too much or not valid? Was it the boundary violation, and why did you allow it to happen twice before saying something? This isn't self-blame. This is self-knowledge. And self-knowledge is the beginning of self-respect. Epictetus taught his students that the goal of philosophy wasn't to explain the world, it was to explain yourself to yourself, to close the gap between the person you're capable of being and the person you are in any given moment. Toxic people inadvertently accelerate that process. They pressure test your character, they expose the gaps, and if you're paying attention, if you approach these encounters with a philosopher's eye rather than a wounded one, they become some of the most useful experiences of your life. This is not a comfortable reframe. It doesn't make the behavior okay. It doesn't mean you should stay in toxic environments longer than necessary, or perform gratitude for being mistreated. What it means is that you don't have to leave these encounters empty-handed. You can take the lesson and leave the pain. There's another layer to this mirror, one that's slightly harder to sit with. Sometimes toxic behavior continues because it's working. Not in the dramatic sense, but in the quiet sense that we keep showing up to dynamics that diminish us. We keep engaging, keep explaining, keep hoping for resolution, keep giving access to people who have demonstrated they don't value it. And the reason we do this usually is rooted in something deeper than habit. It's rooted in an unexamined belief that perhaps they're right about us. The Stoic remedy for this is consistent, daily recommitment to your own values, not as an affirmation, not as something you say to feel better, but as something you practice. Every small act of self-respect, pausing before reacting, declining to justify yourself unnecessarily, ending a conversation that's going nowhere, is a vote cast for the person you're building. Cast enough votes. The election tips. Everything you've read so far, the scenarios, the reframes, the Stoic tools, all of it converges on a single principle. One idea, properly internalized, that changes the entire texture of how you move through the world when difficult people are in it. It's not a technique. It's not a mindset hack. It's older and simpler and more demanding than either of those things. You are not responsible for how people treat you. You are responsible for who you remain while they're treating you that way. Read that again. Slowly. Because there's a version of self-help that places the entire burden of toxic dynamics on the victim. Just don't let it affect you. Be above it. Kill them with kindness. This isn't that. Those prescriptions are well-meaning, but they skip over the hardest part, the fact that being treated with contempt does affect you. It's supposed to affect you. You're a person, not a wall. The goal isn't to feel nothing. The goal is to remain yourself, fully, consistently under pressure, while feeling everything. Marcus Aurelius faced one of the ultimate tests of this principle when Avidius Cassius, a general he trusted, led an open rebellion against him. He had every justification in the ancient world to respond with overwhelming force, with rage, with the kind of punishing authority that emperors routinely deployed. Instead, his response was measured. He expressed what contemporary accounts suggest was genuine sorrow for Cassius, for the soldiers who followed him, for the fracture in the empire. He reportedly hoped to meet Cassius personally, not to punish him, but to talk. He wanted to ask why. Cassius was killed before that meeting ever happened, by his own men who lost their nerve. Marcus Aurelius is said to have mourned it. This isn't weakness. This is a man so grounded in his own character that even betrayal couldn't pull him from it. His response to the worst kind of disrespect, the betrayal of a trusted colleague, was not reaction. It was an expression of who he already was. That's the standard. Not something to achieve perfectly, something to aim at daily. Practically speaking, this principle looks like a series of small, unspectacular choices. It looks like pausing before you send the message written in heat. It looks like deciding, consciously, not to match someone's contempt with your own. It looks like walking out of a conversation that's designed to break you down without slamming the door, not because you're suppressing your anger, but because you've decided the door isn't worth slamming. It looks like knowing that your dignity doesn't require an audience. This is perhaps the deepest challenge Stoicism presents to a culture that has been trained to perform everything, to respond publicly, to defend loudly, to make sure everyone sees that you weren't okay with what just happened. Stoicism asks you to let your response be internal, to let your strength be private, to let your self-respect be demonstrated through conduct rather than declared through words. And here is why this changes how toxic people treat you. Practically, not just philosophically. Toxic behavior is sustained by feedback. Every reaction, every defense, every visible wound tells the provocateur that they have power here, that this is worth continuing. When you consistently deny that feedback, calmly, without hostility, without the cold performance of being unbothered, you remove the incentive. You don't have to tell them they've lost their power over you. They'll notice. Not because you've become unreachable, but because you've become rooted. And rooted people are ultimately uninteresting to those whose survival depends on instability. Toxic people need you off balance. Your equilibrium, quiet, consistent, unannounced, is its own repellent. This is the shift, not a dramatic confrontation, not a cutting final word, just a person who has decided who they are and holds to that decision through every test, every provocation, every moment someone tries to tell them otherwise. You didn't come this far in life to be undone by someone else's chaos. And yet, here you are. Like most people, you've handed over pieces of your peace in situations you can barely explain afterward. You've replayed conversations at 2 a.m., rehearsed the things you wish you'd said, felt the slow burn of someone else's behavior living rent-free in your mind days after the moment passed. That ends not with a dramatic confrontation, not with a perfectly delivered speech. it ends with a decision, quiet, private, and final. The decision that your interior life belongs to you. Stoicism doesn't promise you that the toxic people will leave, or change, or suddenly understand the damage they cause. Some of them won't. Some of them will never be capable of it. That's a reality the Stoics looked at directly, without bitterness, without despair, and their response wasn't to wait for the world to become fair. It was to become someone who didn't need it to be. That's what you're building here. Every time you pause instead of react, you build it. Every time you decline to defend yourself to someone who has already decided, you build it. Every time you set a limit, not out of anger, but out of clarity, you build it. Every time you leave an interaction having remained yourself, fully, completely, without compromise, you have won something that no one can take back. You won't always get it right. Neither did Marcus Aurelius, a man who dedicated his entire adult life to Stoic practice and still wrote in his private journal about his failures of patience, his bouts of frustration, the people who genuinely wore him down. The practice isn't about perfection, it's about direction. And the direction is always inward. The respect you've been looking for, the kind that feels like solid ground rather than shifting approval. It was never going to come from the people who withheld it. It was always going to be built inside you, in small, unremarkable moments of self-honoring choice. Toxic people will test that. They always do. But tests are only a problem if you haven't prepared. You've prepared now. Walk accordingly. Thank you for being here. Subscribe to The Stoic Mode and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. We are just getting started on this road to self-mastery. Stay disciplined, stay unshaken,